transcendent knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, how should a son and daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death. No suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times, by means of Prajnaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi, Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. No, Maraya Vede Ata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhisoha Baba Gunju Sunji Gaide Medoji Shel Doji Meva Doji Shewa Doji Jagi Baji Medum Bejo Danji Jelinga Yezo Geri Nunya Jeju Shewa Da Medun Beje Dan Jewa Dan Domba Yoji Mun Zun Zun Yoji Jashi De Yane Na De Le Yo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Radha Mandala Gamniratayami. Jadanjali Janam La Janju Badu Dani Yazuji Dagi Jinye Jibe Zonanji Rola Benji Zanye Rubayo Jadanjali Janam La Janju Badu Dani Yazuji Dagi Jinye Bezonam Jinjola Benjia Zanje Rubayo Jadan Zaji Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Yazuji Dagi Chinye Bezonam Jinjola Benjia Zanje Rubayo.
What the Lari Chibo, that Lari Chibo, that Nama Chibichung Catulate, Marba, Chibichung Caturo, Chibichung, Sambajan, what somebody Chivitse, Tela Lutus was on Sambajan, when the Chitala, Jiden Shamatan, Julajiba, Jiden Shamati, thought in Vanije, Tanjide Shamati, thought about the Lachondu, the Leni, and the Chandusa, Talian, Lendekatuiba, Lendela, Lendisha, the Shedat Samba, Son and Judusha.
Lesson.
Yeah.
So we are looking again at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and specifically the section that deals with training the mind in the stage of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity. Under that major heading, we find those three categories: the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, the measure of an attitude of a person of small capacity, and then dispelling any misconceptions related to the person of small capacity. Under that first heading, the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, there are two categories. First, developing the state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, and then second, relying on a means or a method for achieving happiness in one's next life. That particular category has two major headings under it. First, refuge, and then second, karma and its results. We've finished the section on refuge, and we're currently in the section on karma and its results. And that section has three categories: reflecting on karma and its results in general, reflecting on karma and its results specifically, or the details of it, and then how one engages in virtue and turns away from non-virtue after he or she has reflected on karma and its effects in general and specifically. So we're currently dealing with the third category of how you engage in virtue and turn away from non-virtue after you have reflected in general and specifically.
Subasana Jodusha Jus. Takabilende Nabilende Sane, Tanjudusha Ju. Kabilende Nabilende Sane, Ne Juba Duba, Jodusha Ju, Juba Sana Gawajula Jubichu, Duba Sana, Deva Magoa Dubichu, Sane Jodusha Jus, Magoa Jupombichu, Gawajula Jubichu, Gamagijubon Sudan Sombichu, and Deba Mago Jupon Bisu to Tenid Lady Bare, San and Jodusha Jus.
So the first, this third heading says how you engage in virtue and turn away from non-virtues. So this is showing one how he or she engages in the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities. So how to engage in those behaviors, and then how to abandon those non-virtuous activities, such as the 10 non-virtues, or those 10 misdeeds. So it's directly related to practicing virtuous activities and abandoning non-virtuous activities, and then specifically those 10 virtues and 10 non-virtues.
다 산는 주도 샤스들라 라리지 사진이래도 찌된바다 처벌도 도지 장비 주스 도지 장비 주 사진이래도 다시 된바도 사지 다 찌러다 라리지 뭐게 사지 찌래 다다는 시 된바들 디나선은 장지 사지 찌진 찌진 용도 안는 가서 어떻게 레갈레 너는 말봐.
So now we're dealing with this third section. And in the third section, we find two categories. First, the general explanation, and then in particular, the way of purification through the 4 powers. So we're dealing first with the general explanation. And in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we find this as one major category. But if you look at Jayan Sheba's commentary on this text, we'll find there are 8 categories listed within this one section. So we're going to go through those 8 categories as we look at it at the section.
So we're
on page 247 in the English. And we've gone through this a little bit already, but we're going to go back through it.
Jojo Magawale, Dunganjong, Telechatang Attache, Nisen Tato Dakine, Dejimaji Sambari Shetan, Gishun Taji, Tawa Mego Tobeson, Tayam, Tawa Tato, Namen de Bumbiso, Sheson Batar, Kanaga Ledan Jebo, Shebra Shene, and then Shebatan La Manju Barayana Yanto. Gumbashade, the Shinto, good to Chube, never sent to Chetneka Isharosa, Saji Tomato Tere, or Del Das Haji Tomajaji with Haji Tomato Tere. Take a duck on the Dajiki Judu, doing Demba, Kunju Demba, and then doing Demi Kunju Kunjuri, or to San Wabtambaina, and then Naju Samba Luchusi. Logisu Tanguares and Dode Yamita, Kunju Kunjurin to Santa Baina, and Donge Jutan Jebel Gabu Marvata, Telemaga in Nanu Sambate, Waji Tangues, what about what is a good one?
In the giant Sheba Ewa Tambo, Sengar,
Tomato water on the Casa Nisen Gundu Gumbi Logisu. Nisen Gundu Damaji Gumbi Logisuna Nanjung Sambi Logisu. What the Logisu Tangues, what they Shunjuk City Damaji Tan, what the Sunday about Montana, and Dunget Jutan Jebal Tandu Nanjung Sambate, Chief Tanguares, what the Tomato.
So this, we find now first in the general explanation a quote from Shantideva's Engaging in the Bodhisattva Deeds, or the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And this is where Jayan Sheba begins his first category. And this first category deals with day and night thinking about the Four Noble Truths and the desire to be free from suffering, so that one can then develop a state of renunciation. So this is the first category. And here, when we look at the quote, it says, "From non-virtue comes suffering. How can I truly be free of this? It is fitting that all times, day and night, I think of only this." So here, This is referring to those first noble truths, the truth of suffering, so recognizing the negativities or the drawbacks of suffering itself, and then the truth of origin, the desire to abandon the truth of origin or be free from the truth of origin, which is the root of cyclic existence. So thinking about the truth of suffering and the truth of origin of suffering day and night makes one's mind change, one's thinking change, and develop into a state of renunciation, or a state in which that practitioner wishes to definitely emerge from that cycle of existence. Decent.
There's my. What then my that culture was that Kanalende session down was Kabilende, Nabilende, and then what the Magi and the Nami Jujo, Nami Devo, Dabin Devo, Juting Devo, and then what the late to the Nabileta, Mangabileta, what then the Gawad to Sukangal, what the Gimagi. What in the Sukan to go to Jubares, Yana the Santa Namatu, Yana the Santa Namatu, what the Logia at Galicabres, and Shendo Casa, Shendo go to Juba in Susan, Yana the Santa Namatu, Tazule, in Nabania, Gulugia, Galicabres. Shendo go to Judes, Mozung to Mare, and Moduji Tanda to Mare, Saji Son Conal Tene, Shegua in Susan, Shendo go to Jubares, what the Tango is?
For the sage has said that conviction is the root of all virtues, and to constantly meditate on fruitional effects is the root of this conviction. Thus, having understood virtuous and non-virtuous karma and their effects, do not leave it as just an understanding, but meditate on it over and over, because this is a very obscure subject and it is difficult to acquire certainty about. So here, the point being made is that one needs to think over and over again about black and white deeds, and then think about the various results of action, to think about fruitional results, causally concordant results, environmental results, and then to think of the various divisions of karma, such as karma that one has done and karma that one has not done, and so forth. So one needs to constantly think about these topics in order for there to be a transformation of mind, or an awareness, a realization that is renunciation. So in order for this desire to definitely emerge, to actually come to fruition, it's necessary to meditate over and over on the details of it, because it's an extremely hidden phenomenon. It's not one that one can easily, a topic that one can easily understand. Therefore, it requires repeated analysis in order for one to gain that conviction. Because Buddha is the only one who gave this presentation of the suffering and the origin of suffering. And it's because the Buddha's omniscience that he is or she is able to give this presentation. So because it can't be directly perceived by ourselves, it's necessary for us to think about it over and over again and arrive at this faith of conviction, which is inference through belief.
Ne naki kan na ba jen ju jang chue ne me den ba yi mu song xie song ba tar de jin xie bi song la yi che ba xie la jang de la ju mi ji ne ba ma ji na chue gan la yang jawa ji bi ne jawa ji bi ne ba me ne dos wo de ni ba do de wo de Lende Kana Lende to Sukalo, then Cha to Saji Sun Konala Denamatu, Shetu Maris, Saji Sun Konala Denamatu, Shetu Maris, the thing is Jabu long to get the Tanguaris.
The Nipa
Drote, and thing is the Jabules, and the Wakama Taji Satone, the other Kamaka Salmalon, and the Zukalo True, the Mebachabaina, Naki Condition to Jubaina, the Jinshi was soon to joy Maris, Kana Lende Sonshab Dembares, Sombatare, the Jinshi was soon like each ever, Shella Chante, de la Chumiji, 신도 고조들 주마마 내가 많이나 추강라 자와지비 내가 많이도 어디니 받래 어디버드니 받니 있어래
The giant Shavuot sin?
니바들 미트 타고도와 렌데 공바 사제지 송코네네 주사
Okay.
렌데 공바 사제가 송코나라 렌데 차지 자도서 사제 송코나라 때는 공고를 마도 젠다 시도야 요마레스 어디 된거였어
So then we get to the second category in Jayan Sheva's text where he says that karma and its results have only been presented by Lord Buddha. So the only way that one can understand them is through the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, or the scriptures of Lord Buddha. So here we find a quote from the King of Concentration Sutra. Were the moon and the stars to fall from their place, and the earth with its mountains and cities to perish, or the realm of the sky to completely transform, you, Buddha, still would not speak a word of untruth. So all of Buddha's speech can be taken as truth. The Buddha's words don't change with respect to the truth. So if one wishes to understand the black and white actions and their results without error, it's necessary to rely on the truth that the Buddha has presented.
다 가지서 어느 돈이를 데브차이 주소 때 송바데 돈이를 데브차이 주소도와 돈이를 데브차이 주소한테 내가도 가지 동안이랑 내가 내가 계스네 레당 데블랑 내가 매지 들라면서와네 돈이 주고 신주로도 송한테 돈이 권하네 되니 땡리지도 통네 렌데랑 내가 집이 주소 yu shite sa do teniles tengen jabe jero do tenile juma chubu mejo lunda jin chuna taji chubo chunda jin shene jiden paru roai ne seje shile jeba memi chang lena jeba meba manjote kana jin debe meba jesh She son bi tuji gun de zan de chajin tongi yayu shuyins she son so de son badre toni la de bi chay tus wa de toni la de bi chay tus de tenguyus ta toni la de bi chay kaji sna kaji da toni to son la kaji an toni la ko de ab chago mars lenel chago mars 돈이 도송선에 레레를 맞춰와제 워튼제바데 돈이로 고아신로 송다레스 돈이 돈을 고는 잡아 렌델 네 가서 그래 내가 송용 그래스 워드 렌델 내가 송용 그래서 당아도 다시도 말을 당아서 나서야지도 아이세다 나한테 pomongala 되는 조바래 난조왕을 되는 조버는 용왕을 맞대바 라와디요 말레스 다지 네 투비 따발라 되는 조버래 투비 따발라 맞대바 라와디요 말레스 포몽갈라 맞대바 라와도 매바도 건도디 포몽갈라 되바들래 포몽갈라 되바 셰빌로다 포몽갈라 맞대바 라와도 매바 셰빌 로니베데 조조제 지기질 조제르스 근데 돈이 또바이나 돈이 또블 텐데 Tende tubulul drushe, tende tubulul toni tubulul drushe bachigo kores. What the true majina toni lo koati abayongo ma koashin julo drushes. Lende le mazabatu yondu kores. Toni lo koanguna sondu yana toni tubulu ne lende shibulu tala ne jushe kores. Lende shibi le ne toni tubulul jushe no kuni ne jipe jiru drowajigo kores. Wotendo suna toni kunengwacha ngone chabares toni lende chayus wotin zamarbe jajibo wotengusa.
So the third category deals with the result of the realization of emptiness, being that one is certain about karma and its effects, or has a certainty about karma and its effects. So here Some who claim that they have acquired... we have to just read through this. If you do not have... thus, have conviction in the teachings of the Tathagata and then sustain your meditation on them. If you do not have uncontrived certainty about this quality of the truth in the Buddhist teaching, then you will not gain the certainty that will please the conqueror with regard to any of the teachings. Some who claim that they have acquired certain knowledge of emptiness are uncertain about karma and its effects and do not value it. This is a mistaken understanding of emptiness. For once you understand emptiness, you will see that the meaning that it is the meaning of dependent arising, and it will assist you in becoming certain about karma and its effects. The same sutra says, like illusions, so the King of Concentration Sutra says, like illusions, bubbles, mirages, and lightning, all phenomena are like the moon reflected in the water. It is not the case that living beings who die and go to their next lives are the offspring of Manu, the first human at the beginning of the eon. Yet the karma that you possess does not disappear. The virtuous and non-virtuous give rise to their effects accordingly. This logical approach is sound, though subtle and difficult to see. It is within the scope of the conqueror. So here, the point being made is that once one understands emptiness, then one understands dependent arising. If one understands dependent arising, then one understands emptiness. So when we look at, for instance, the topic or the subject of the I is not inherently existent. The I is nominally designated on a collection, such as the 5 aggregates or the 5 elements. But there is no I that is independent of that collection in which it's been designated on, nor is it that collection. So we see that the I is merely dependently originated based upon a collection that serves as the basis of designation for that I. So once one sees this dependent origination, then one sees emptiness. And once one sees this emptiness, then the understanding of karma and its results becomes a natural result. So this becomes the cause of the understanding, and vice versa. So the dependent origination is understood when one understands emptiness. If someone states that he or she has realized emptiness, yet there isn't this understanding of cause and effect, then their understanding of emptiness isn't a real understanding of emptiness, because one sees that dependent origination at the time of understanding emptiness. So it's necessary to have dependent origination in order for one to have emptiness. And it's necessary for one to have emptiness if one has dependent origination. So these are points that are made here and negations of the misunderstanding of emptiness.
장아주 가정아주 로모다 어때 라주 나서 가자 테레펜스 볼 말고 어떻게 통화된데 로아메 봐도 너무 클렌트 고아니 지시 수수 나왔듯이 또 다도 도비고마 또바미 나시 렌주메 봐 제자도 내시 유지다 군지다 뜻다이 제바 주발라서 어떻게 텐데 둘 돈이 둘 주셔 그래 돈이 둘 텐데 둘 주셔 그래 그니 집에 지루레스 어때 단지 신소나 안 돈을 고아야 잡아레스 나지 렌주메 봐 내시 유지다 군지 뜻다이 따이 제바 주발라 어떻게 어떻게 말해 어떻게 때로단 담을 자와셔로 같이 된주 많이 총가 유바 많이노 대시 도마 많이 총가 유바 많이노 놀래 같이 젠레 제바다 맞지 슬라지 라지 많이 젠라라리가 도마시 케비 돈이시도 봐요이 어떻게 생각하다 말해.
So we've heard many times in Lama Tsongkhapa's 3 principal paths the statement that the lines that say, who sees the inexorable causality of all things, both of cycle, life, and liberation, and destroys any sort of conviction of objectivity, thereby enters the path pleasing to the victors. Appearance as inevitably relative, and emptiness is free of all assertions. As long as these are understood apart, the victor's intent is not yet known. But when they are simultaneous without alternation, the mere sight of inevitable relativity becomes sure knowledge, rid of objective habit patterns, and the investigation of the authentic view is complete. So here, this is speaking of seeing dependent origination when one sees emptiness, and seeing the emptiness when one sees dependent origination. And it's very similar to the root wisdom text, where Nagarjuna states that there is no phenomena that does not dependently originate. Therefore, there is no phenomena that is free of emptiness, or that is not empty, and then etc. So we find a very similar points made by Nagarjuna in the root wisdom text as we do in Lama Tsongkhapa's Three Principal Paths and this great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment.
Tatana tinga jabale Juma Malan Chu or the Tony do tag patenter. Pana ten Yongu never met tender in Beja. Pana Jumaji, Chuji, Mejuji, Lujin, Chewing the Wajin, so the put to stand in some other. Yeah.
So all of these examples, when we look at the quote from the King of Concentration Sutra, where it says like illusions, like bubbles, it's very similar to this. We say the subject sprout is not truly established because it dependently originates. Likewise, like that sprout, illusions, bubbles, mirages, and lightning, and like the moon reflected in water, are all dependently originate, therefore they are empty.
What that the somba jet and the jiba tajiba lende sana and the sheluzan mepemba dance lende sana sheluzan mepemba what the was jiba what the nemanduta tena tende leni judan debjebala ngabaji ni sen to goson Boson la toba shiki ngandu juejes Toma jundeji naye la mekeshin junze shejan goson bayan to juba ne ngandu guje ba kona te ne jatsu shibi shuba lesa lui dabo shanchu samba naje chuji gi ngasung ngando 로바톤 제와 양다바 쥐도 집도 강시나 너다데 다제더 규지 니센난 다시 노냐도 기춘 나라 수도바데 셰송비시로데 어디 송바르자 제바르베
Then the Jipa at Sengare?
어디 제바데 다 어디 제바데 Jibad Jajiba meet the Tagadu, Lendela Sanas, Kabi Lende, Nabi Lende to Santa Baina, Tangan Lende, Sheson Nabasalo, Mashiba Lende, Sheson Santa Basaji, Shesamba Chebaina, Pangio Mothers, Mune Lende the Abashe waters.
This fourth category, according to Jamyan Sheva, is thinking all the time about karma and its results, and the points in their entirety. Just a cursory or outside understanding of these things won't produce any kind of realization. So this is the next category. And it says, therefore, develop certain knowledge of dependent arising together with the causality of the two kinds of karma, and examine your physical, verbal, and mental actions all day and night. By this means you will put an end to miserable rebirths. However, if at the outset you are not versed in the classifications of cause and effect, understanding only a fragment of their depth, and having a lax attitude with your physical, verbal, and mental actions, then you are merely opening the door to the miserable realms. For as the questions of the Naga kings of the ocean states, Lord of Nagas, a single practice of the Bodhisattva correctly puts a stop to rebirth in the miserable realms. What is this single practice? It is the discernment of what is virtuous. You must think, am I being true? How am I spending the day and the night?
What do you talk on the lady? Tende Leni Judan Rebujeba la Nabaji Sento Gosula Tuba Shigan and Nasum Good Kagres. Tato the Tende Leni Tende is now what the Kasure Jujin la teme tende the Daji la teme tende initial koya yogro tende le ni jison de kabi le dans nabi le marba kabi le gwajo nabi le magojo what le de marba le ni judan le ni juje ane kabi le de botla dawa tan matan la tan ane tabatan sanji ko tu jiro nabi le de botla ane dogen tan Nyawa yeda tunro, tunro zeyro. Debata jebala, ngaba jejin, nyensen to, goson la toba to, goson to santan de jege, ane ngande gut kagres. Ngande gut kagres, da. Ngande gut kagres, da kanta wat santan ane magajumo tsurin kanto jedo son matun debal shadan jeya. What then she by in the Nadu good cano da Nadu good cagres, da Jujes Toma what the Toma Jundije Naila Macations, Toma Jundije Nail Kibajgore, Naila Macation, Junde Jonze Sheba in Nayana, Lu Nga is on the and the Luigi Deba Nagi Deba with the Momusaba Ina, what the Nason Gunji but the ngaso god se ngures nyawal jendere edal jegre tonul jegres what to son marang je ba kona de jatsu jubales jatsu jubalta wote lui jab jatsu jero jatsu jubale an saji lui dabus lui dabo jatsul byogo jero lui dabo shanchu samba na ji chuji ge nganru ngaso tonwa jeba 야다바 쥐도 상주 상반나지 취지기 난중가 송동아 나송 곧 가그레스 쥐도 기부도 가시나 ndadates 나송 고가야 취도 쇼스나 ndadate 다제다 쥐지 니체 다시 다제다 쥐니센 다시 조냐도 기초나라 소소도 와스 니센도 Nisenkudote, Magujum Sutinsoya, so Matun Tebal Shadanjea, or then Jeting Jedige, Nandu Good Kagres, or things Amarbe. Yeah.
Therefore, develop certain knowledge of dependent arising together with the causality of the two kinds of karma. So here this is speaking of black actions and their results and white actions and their results. When one engages in black actions, the result is that one will have suffering, suffering of the lower realms of cyclic existence of a hell-hungry ghost and animal. If one engages in white actions, then these virtuous actions, then these actions lead to the higher realms of cyclic existence of the gods, demigods and humans, as well as liberation or nirvana, and then complete Buddhahood. So this is what it means, the causality of the two kinds of karma. And examine your physical, verbal, and mental actions all day and night. So one should examine their body, speech, and mind all the time. And if one engages in and try to engage in the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and if one engages in a non-virtuous activity, then he or she should engage in an acknowledgement of that downfall. So here, if one does this, then one can put an end to the lower realms of rebirth. However, if at the outset you are not versed in the classifications of cause and effect, understanding only a fragment of their depth and having a lax attitude with your physical, verbal, and mental actions. So if you engage in negativities because of not understanding with your body, speech, and mind, then you are not stopping rebirth in the lower realms of cyclic existence. You are opening the doors to rebirth and into the lower realms of cyclic existence. So these are the points that are made in that section. And then it says, questions of the Naga kings of the ocean states, Lord of Nagas, a single practice of the Bodhisattva correctly puts a stop to rebirth in the miserable realms. What is this single practice? It is the discernment of what is virtuous. You must think, am I being true? How am I spending the day and night? So here, this is an examination of one's behavior and one's mind, checking to see if one has engaged in non-virtuous activity or engaged in the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities. And if one has engaged in non-virtuous activity, then it's necessary to acknowledge one's downfalls or confess those downfalls. Because by engaging the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities and then acknowledging downfalls when they do occur, one can put a stop to the lower realms of cyclic existence.
Toma junji naila magicians, Toma junji naila magita, jundi to the she namaraba. Jundi what the Gigi Juiseni, Gigi Juiseni, Jajan de Viceni. Then July and Mojo Jujo, Nile, Lajishi Marba, Mojo Juju Nile, Lajishi. Then Jajan de Viceni, Devil in a Monday, Jundi, Niende. 현지신데 어떤 샤도와
Lessa.
답변한 것도 어때 네 파말 보고 찍으러 말해 파말 보고 찍어서 파마도 보고 주로 파마도 보고 주로 네 주인 비주선 가르스나 지지 임베지 보고 지지 임베지 보고 지지 인상 보고 주레스 지지 주이세니 지지 주이세니 살이 신적으로 사주지 신기 주인데 신지지 임베지 어떤 나진 답답 말배 한 상주 생주지 나친 주인데 나친 지지 임베지 어떤 강을 크게 보시고 온도다
Shansen, Namchen. Okay. So now we will look a little bit about cause and effects. So when it says to be well versed in, hold on one second. That it's negative to be not versed in the classifications of cause and effect. So here we're going to now go over some of the definitions and divisions of cause and effect. So cause is defined as a producer. And then there are 5 different kinds of cause. Direct cause, indirect cause, I'm sorry, 4, I apologize. I was counting cause. Direct cause, indirect cause, substantial cause, and then cooperative condition. So these are the different categories of cause. And then result or effect is defined as that which is produced. And then there are 4 kinds of effects or results: direct effects, indirect effects, substantial effects, and cooperative effects. So when we look at cause and effect, we can begin to use examples like a parent and their offspring or their child. The parents are the child's cause because the child is that which is produced, and the parents are the producer. So the parents categorically are a cause because they are the producer, and the child is the result because the child is that which is produced. So when we look at a tree and the earth, the tree, the sadang shin.
사도 실적도 가서 신살적으로 살제바 있어서 사도 신이 좀 말해 살 신모 주도 담는 뭐 정말.
Okay, so we see that the earth gives rise to a tree, for instance. So the tree is that which is produced, and then the earth itself is the producer of that arisal. And then the same is also true for the mind that aspires to enlightenment. The mind that aspires to enlightenment is a producer of what? It is a producer of omniscience. So omniscience is that which is produced, so it is necessarily an effect or a result. And what causes that effect or result is the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So this is what is meant by cause and effect, a producer and that which is produced. So the subject virtue causes happiness? Yes, the subject virtue causes happiness because it is a producer of happiness. So the subject virtue is a cause of happiness because it is a producer of happiness. And the Chief Mgewa Lobsang.
다 먹어 주 동에 좋아해요. 동에 지지 임베지. 내송 좋아해데 내송 지지 임베지.
So the subject non-virtue is the cause of suffering. Yes, the subject non-virtue is the cause of suffering because it is the producer of suffering. Is it the cause of the lower realms of cyclic existence? Yes, it is the cause of the lower realms of cyclic existence because it is the producer of the lower realms of cyclic existence.
다분한 대바 먹어와 먹이 레드워드 분한 내송 좋아해. 내송 주인은 일레인 해지시지. 뭐주인 주주인 주들 지산다. 지산다도 뭐주 주주 일레 해지시지. 근데 대바 먹어 주주지 내송 좋아해로. 일레 아이스나 내송 일레 아이스나 일레 많이 나오고 말이야.
Yeah, and Rangi, Nietzsche.
아마도 가서는 제대로와 그러나 신칼을 데이터 말이야. 신칼은 데이터 주로와. 신칼은 데이터 주로와. 신칼 주 데이터 년에 아이 마일라고 말이야.
마인.
신칼 년에 쇼 데이터 시.
소군.
사면도 와데 데이터 년에 말이야. 근데 손도 또 콘데전으로 어디니 데이터 년에스. 년에 주이스. 데이터가 신칼다 데이터 제만 데이터기 년에 주이스. 신칼데 데이터기 현지시제 라고무도
데 세니 강가 라고야 응우주 주주 펜토도 무스제체 준니제체 랑기 nieje 랑기 릭준 두 소제체 렌치 제체 랑기 Okay, so I asked Rinpoche if he wanted me to go through all of the definitions of these things. So he does. So we're going to be able to look at them easier if we have the definitions, because now Rinpoche is asking which categories they fall into. So first, direct cause is defined as a direct producer. Indirect cause is defined as an indirect producer. Substantial cause is defined as a main producer which is of the type which continues to the substantial effect. And then the cooperative condition is defined as a main producer which is not of the type which continues to its cooperative effect. So these are the definitions. I'll run through the definitions of result also. So result, that which is produced. Direct result is defined as that which is directly produced. Indirect result is defined as that which is produced indirectly. Substantial result is defined as the main thing produced which is of the type which continues to its substantial effect. That's got to be incorrect. Of the type which continues to its substantial effect, which is of the type which continues from its substantial result. I'll have to look that up. I think I wrote down something wrong there. I don't have my logic primer with me, so I can't look it up, but I believe it should say the main thing produced which is of the type which continues from its substantial cause. But I'll have to look that up because it would be redundant to say continues to its substantial effect. And then cooperative effect is that which is produced which is not of the type which continues from its cooperative result. So these are the definitions of the various causes and results. There are 4 types of causes, 4 types of result. So when we use the subject non-virtue, and for instance the 10 non-virtuous activities being a cause of the lower realms of cyclic existence, then what type of cause would we say that is? When we look at, for instance, a field, and rice that is planted in a field, that field becomes the cause of that rice's arisal. But what kind of cause is it? Is it a substantial cause? It can't be a substantial cause because it's not a main producer which is of the type which continues to the substantial effect. So the earth is not of the type of its result. So it can't be a substantial cause. So what we find it to be is a cooperative condition. It is a main producer which is not of the type which continues to its cooperative effects. So it's a main producer of the result, but it's not of the type of the result. So this is what we would consider a field to be. And then when we look at, for instance, the seed itself and the planter itself, the seed itself that has been planted by a planter, that is a substantial cause because it is a main producer which is of the type which continues to the substantial effect. So that seed itself is of the type that continues on to its result, for instance, a tree or a sprout of some sort, or a vegetable or some kind of a sprout. So this seed is within that type, within that continuum, whereas the earth is something separate. So the earth being cooperative condition, the seed being the substantial cause itself. The sopun de mujuyen ni
ta what the single day tagro are single day tadule tan de nyogu chakalam get de juro tungo juro ta ngojure dro thing again de juju marbe jujuro de de show the lance nyogu cheng do na ngojuro ngoju marbe de kungo de ro de jodo kuni tare be na juju jude marbe jude.
Then the juju show the
juju shows and the single tag common you de jue marbe what the jema singa de juju marbe kale ko singa ta na one day ngoro ta singa ta sadu nyogu chikalam de juero tungo juro ta common you de juju tare mo chin ba nilen dogoro
Tarimo the tamche sabudu yene the juju so yo mare gongel mebachi
juju tan deba ta ko juni te tare mo yo de juju se juju deba chikalam juju ro tungo jure ro ta te tamale keji kaji jang de na juju mar kale ko ta ne bo de tungo jure ro
then juju shianjo show sena
juju shows and the single tag de juro
shinka da
kaman euro kaman de juro pakan singa tagro what the day jema de juro ngoju maro kuni de ta ne bo maro da
less
pakan singa tag kan do what the juju maro
okay. So the actual seed itself that gives rise very closely to that sprout is its direct cause. Indirect cause could be something which is a cause of it that is further away than that. So for instance, Rinpoche said, if you had some rice that blew out of your house and then then it became the cause of it later becoming an arisal of a rice plant, then this would be an example of an indirect cause. But the direct cause is that which the sprout comes right out of, the seed that the sprout comes right out of. So this is what the direct cause of that sprout is. So indirect cause would be, Rinpoche said, something that's further away that then causes it to later happen.
당아서 아말 보고 잘 찾아봐이나 보고 되게 니래다 현지시 전이자고로도 말이야 아말 보고 제봐이나 아밀 보고 두군 제모도 되니래 아마도 보고 들어봐 말로다 바바데 들어봐 말로 보고 니래 좋아서는 봐도 유용 말이야 봐도 되니래 있으라고 파마도 되래지지로.
So when we look at a child being born and its parents, for instance, its parents are not the substantial cause because the child itself that is in the womb is not the father, nor is it the mother. This becomes the cooperative condition. The parents become the cooperative condition. The substantial cause becomes the bardo, or the intermediate state being. So the substantial cause of the child conception being the conceived child in the stomach is the intermediate state being that is that same continuum. So this would be the substantial cause.
Ta diba magwal den but nyawa tabal jiba ina nyawa diba magwal den nyawa jiba ina and then what the nyawa but the diba magin devro diba magwal nyawa by jurwa jure nyele jo ai mai haji shi chen lo wo nyele jo mai ko magwal de nyawa but the go marwa nyawa but the man nyawa ma chen ke gaza de nyawa but marwa
Then the Nyelen Ju, the Nyawapa, Nyelen.
Diba sakin gaza de nyawa but marwa the nyele marwa ndeg chu de marwa
Diba Sakin. So then, when we look at the 10 non-virtuous activities being a cause for the lower realms of cyclic existence, we say that those non-virtues are not the cause of the being in the hell realm, are not the substantial cause of the being in the hell realm. They are the cooperative condition of the being in the hell realm. The substantial cause of the being in the hell realm is the being who accumulated the non-virtue. So the being who accumulated the non-virtue is the substantial cause of the being in the hell realm. The actual non-virtue itself is the cooperative condition. The Migewa, Ju, the Lanchi, Jiechen. Migewa, Lanchi, Jiechen. Okay, Selbudu. Selbulaso.
Ta Gawala then Jeba ina Hata Mal Jeba ina, and the Gawadu the Metal Hai, Hanji Jang Jomarba, Hanji Jang. Yenen shows in the Gawazaki, the Lacha, Harian, Marian Ware, what and do Marvode, Date and Governor, what the unique and the Sun.
So when we're thinking of cause and result then about virtuous activities, the virtuous activities themselves become the cooperative conditions for the higher realms of cyclic existence of the gods, humans, and demigods. The substantial cause of the beings in the higher realms of cyclic existence is the virtue, the person who engaged in the virtue, or the being who accumulated the virtue. The being who accumulated the virtue becomes the substantial cause for the higher realm being, whereas the virtue itself is a cooperative condition in that process. So we'll take a short break, and we'll be back. Okay.
That to what they are is raw. To what they are is, and Sejemo Zumel Chigurda, Zumel Zuyo Maruda, Zumel Ma, and the Batan Zuhon Jimudu, and the Zumel Zuyo Marua, and the Zugi Yelet Carres, Zumen Zugi Yelet Yervesana, or the Tusutubanduta.
So one doubt now can arise when we think of this. When you think of the different realms of cyclic existence, you have the desire realm, and the form realm, and the formless realm. So then we have to question then, since the formless realm has no form, what becomes its substantial cause? If there is a being that is form, then does form become the substantial cause for a formless realm being? So this is a doubt that arises when we look at cause and effect. The Yajardish Detsurla. The less so.
Zumene, the Vajivatis, Paduchi, Ombukutan Imbata, Duro, Ming Ombulazuba, Samayoat, Duro.
The Zume Kamba.
Zume Khan and Padul, the Padul Chivatis.
Less so.
Zume kanu obu yo maro.
Okay.
Zume kanu debi padu jeba tiitse, debi padu atara obu kunsan yinbe dero. Obu kunsan tume jos. Obu kunsan yinbata, miga obu yoada dero. Miga obu yo na, miga obu nilen sho. Zume miga obu yo maro.
Less so. Okay, I see. Okay.
Wate tuba yo.
Less so. So then another doubt arises also when we look at, for instance, a being who's in the desire realm and then goes to the intermediate state. And in the intermediate state, it's stated that all of the sense powers are present. So if in the intermediate state a being has, for instance, the eye sense powers and the other sense powers, then what then do these give rise to if the next phase of existence is a formless realm existence, because the sense powers are not present in a formless realm existence? So then the question is, what is that continuum? And then is it within its continuum able to produce this, and this is why it is present as a formless realm? So these are the questions that come up. These are the doubts that arise because there was a sense power, and then in the intermediate state it's stated that there are fully functional sense powers. So then this formless realm being, what becomes the substantial cause for it at that point?
Ana langona watan kang julesi tonga yo maro jumi le tiki nilen shosana watu sul toba yo ta.
So then also in the tantric path, if we look at the light body that is produced, and then we ask what is the substantial cause of this light body, then this also becomes a question we have to think about.
Das sen lue sen ngaye sen tatu pi se shugutala julu junguru jumi lu watu nyedi ki madaba yiru madaba julu res. ane tolong ye chidal nyedi ki tabi maro nyedi ki tabi lu yinzang tabi julus watu na shede anuwa watu jumi lu teki nilai shugo sana karayin.
So we have the Julu, light body.
Jumi lu hangi tangcha ki jumi lu se to judu lamel ma tu yo maro judu oma yo maro zuri dala sen luyen ngaya sen julu wese lagu maro julu wese lagu ro te sul to ba na.
So then in the tantric path, I'm going to have to table this because I don't want to translate it improperly, but in the tantric path, what becomes the substantial cause for these various levels of Julu, it's the stage before clear light. It's the stage before clear light that is in question here. Well, I have to just look it up. I'm sorry, I don't want to mistranslate it. What becomes the substantial cause for that? There is there are levels of that where the afflictive obstructions haven't been removed, and then there are levels of it which the afflictive obstructions have been removed. And then what becomes the substantial cause for that level of realization? So I will look it up next time. For next time.
What the sound about Gigi to Suku Julugi with the Nilen shows and the Saint had to be USA, Jabatu Lung to what the Lays, Saint had to be USA, Lanjura, take Jabatu Lung Juarez, Lung to what the Julumun Juarez.
So then the Guhya Samaja and the Yamantaka Tantras, when we ask what is the substantial cause of this, we find that it is the wind itself which gives rise to this as its substantial cause.
That to Guhina Tonzu Julid sound at the Tonzu. Saint at the Bay, say Jabatu Lung to the Mailagre, what the Zultobayo.
In the Kala Chakra tradition, we find a different pronouncement that's being made about what the substantial cause of that is. And it is, so we have a doubt that arises because we find two differing points that are made. And again, I apologize, I don't have that one detail, which is so
what the to what on that what the Gigi Jews and Juliana Mojo Juju Yele Legis Yele what the Tobacino or to Tobamun.
So when we look at the divisions of cause, we find that there are 4. Direct cause, indirect cause, substantial cause, and cooperative condition. So we need to know what all of these mean.
Thomas Jundila Thomas Jundi Naila Macations, Judigana to the Jean Gunsadua. Jose Sheba in at the Goson, Lugi Dibat and Nagi Dibat and Saba in out there, Nason Gushegres, Conate, Chatsushibale, Louis Dabosa. Louis Dabo, Shanju Samba Naji, Chujigi, Nasun Nadulubar, Chewa, Yantabar Chuto, Chuji with Kanshin and Tate, Dachata Chuji, Nisenda, Nisen and Dashin, Dunyato, Gichu, Tamagaju, Chujin, Katu Chutusun, Sumatun Debal Shadanjia, what the Sosutuba, what the Suki was in a new good Chunagres. What the Deba Magawating has on Gorovata, what did Dojo, Magijum Chutin, and the Toyson was Shadanchia to the gay, Nason good carnival. She is also what the.
So then it says, therefore develop certain knowledge of dependent arising together with the causality of the 2 kinds of karma, and examine your physical, verbal, and mental actions all day and all night. And by this means, you will put an end to miserable rebirths. However, if at the outset you are not versed in the classifications of cause and effect, understanding only a fragment of their depth and having a lax attitude with your physical, verbal, and mental actions, then you are merely throwing open the door to the miserable realms. For as the questions of the Naga kings of the ocean states, Lord of the Nagas, a single practice of the Bodhisattva correctly puts a stop to rebirth in the miserable realms. What is this single practice? It is the discernment of what is virtuous. You must think, am I being true? How am I spending the day and night? So here, this is one examining his or her behaviors and related to the 10 non-virtuous activities, in asking oneself, am I engaging in the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities? If I am not, and if I am engaging in non-virtuous activity, then I must acknowledge these downfalls, engage in confession of these downfalls. Because it is non-virtuous activities which are the door to the lower realms of cyclic existence, it's necessary to abandon those behaviors, engage in those virtuous behaviors, and by doing so, we can close the doors to the lower realms of cyclic existence.
What the Jibat Jeta Nabat the Denmare Nabat Loanja Jebetemi Tagadu. They are Rajula Tatsusa, Rajula Tatsu, what the team, but Takade Kananga led to Shebaje, Kananga led to the Absheba, Pachapata Woodota, Pachap Madana, what the Kabi lended on Nabi lended to Shemaro, Nabi lended to Kabi lended to Shetasuna. Then Suzuki Lunga is on Shebate, Kabi lende, one day you do him, Nabi lende, you do the Taturota. What the Nabadra, what thing was at the theatre, the Jula Tabanas, the Jul Tabana, Jul Tabandan, Kabi lende, the Nabi lende, Tempe, Jean to the Tat, Kazure, Masun Galassi, Feljamara, Galassi. Galassi. And then Galassi, you ever in a Dumbal Junior and a Carina Tonturo. Galassi and Tusitevina, Dumbal Junior, Junior Tonture, Junior Man, and Junior Meva Tonturo. Then I Kabil ended and Nabil ended, then be Pesha to Galo, and then Galassi and Marba. Pesha to the shade and a Pesha to Latene, Susu Jul Goakazi, go out on Tungu, Dibi Chu Yogu, Dibat and Jay, what to Gashin Marba, Pecha, Pechal Tebaina, and she Susu Jude, Chudon Tumba and Duemude, Sheturo. What to say is a Marba. Penanga Sungo Jensen, Modu Jen, Modu Jensen, Jenson, Raji Jen, Sejig Jen, Zejig Jenson Lota, Raji Jen, yon jende du son tabadre rajin ki jen yon jende du son tabaje ane seje ki jen dan galasi chwe nabate ngodu jende res ngodu jen la tene jenu du son janda de kariba de shedu roda galasi na mo ane seje ki jen zeje ki jen ngodu jen ko je de zeje ki jen ane ngaso jen chatsi siku no de chwe na de imba
Then Ranjin Jen
Rajin ki jen yo jende du son mong nyete jedon shira nyep tu marbe wo tu rajin ki jen res ta rajin jedan nga su me rajin zo zebi jo ba ina rajin ki jen marbe rajin ki jen ro ane zeje ki jen ko jen cha ta ndo ta zeje ki jen marbe ane tak kare she gela silten she ga do ta rajin ki jen zeba je ane zeje ki jen anji Geshe Lharampa tane gelasin teba ina tonto do example ten naji raji ki jen bon nye je don shira je bu je raji ki jen ti denda seje de ne gelasi ki so ngodu jen tres ngodu jen la tene ti denda she to seje ki jen res seje ki jen ko je mar wo de ngasi jen ja ko de mar wo de so do
Then Jayan Sheba Sengare Ngapa.
Jayan Sheba Tero Tere Ngapa Teyan Ranju la Ta Suisa Ranju la Ta Suisa
Oh, examine the mind.
Sajil Kwa Jarama Sajima to Yomare Ranju la Ta Suisa de Kabi Lende Nabi Lende Suyab Sheba Je and the Susu Jude Kabi Letan Tuma Duem Nabi Letan Dragon Duem.
So now we move on to category number 5. When the former gurus in this lineage had examined their minds in that way, they said. So number 5 is examining one's mind. So this means first one needs to study very well. Look at all of the books that have the points about what black actions and white actions and their results are. So once one understands very well what black actions and their results are, then it's possible to examine one's mind to see if one is moving towards non-virtuous activities or black activities or moving towards white activities or virtuous activities. So by having the knowledge of what they are, one is able to use that knowledge and the books to examine their own mind. So then it is compared to a mirror, using these texts as a mirror to check whether or not we are engaging in the appropriate behaviors or not. So when we look at the Maitreya's ornament for clear realization, we look at what that word ornament means. There are 3 different kinds of ornaments. There are the natural ornaments, there are clarifying ornaments, and then there are beautifying ornaments. So the natural ornaments, when we look at what that category means according to Maitreya's ornament for clear realization, are the actual Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, the 100,000 verse Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, the 20,000 verse, the 8,000 verse, and the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. The actual clarifying ornament is the text itself, because the text itself allows one to use it as a mirror to understand all of these different points that are made in the 100,000 verse and so forth, Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. And so it's like a clarification. It allows you to understand these points that are made. So it's a clarifying ornament. So this clarification, Rinpoche is saying, is very similar to what we're speaking of here, that the texts allow us to do, to clarify what is virtue, what is non-virtue, and then behave accordingly. And then the beautifying ornaments are referring to the 8 chapters that are found within the ornament for clear realization. Because just like a jewelry that you put on that beautify the actual hands or ears, these 8 chapters make the text itself, or the perfection of understanding of the perfection of wisdom, very beautiful. So they are like the ornaments on of the perfection of wisdom. Each of these chapters, they beautify the points that are made. So we have natural ornaments, which are the actual root text, 100,000 verse, 20,000 verse, 8,000 verse, and the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Then we have the clarifying ornament, which is like a mirror, which is the actual text itself. And then the beautifying ornaments, which are the 8 chapters of the Abhisama Alamkara. So it's similar to this. So once we have the understanding based on accurate texts and accurate understanding, then we're able to examine our mind. So this is the 5th category for Jamyan Sheba, that examination of the mind.
Tata Jula Tasu to Lari Chamadere Dua Jebat Shesun Bishar Osote, Jebat Je, Tangaba Tenma, Teter Jula Tabanas, Teter Jula Tabana, Suzuki Senju de, Dibatan de Gudue, Guadan de Gudu, Tabana, Taji Jebana, Tabana, Komana Chishenes, Tatane. Tamadan Tibetan Kadam Lama Comat Zero. Comana Chishene Le Judicic under Chudan Tumbana, Yimetusa, Le Judic also Nangasu, send you to Chudan Tumba do Santan do Tumba Yomaris. Yimetusa. De Ukichu, Chudan Matuba Susan also no duars. Ukichuosa. Tena yimeter chudama tumba insuza ngasol dongel tagmare ne kui dongel tagmare shiri jebal tagmares tena yimeters taban rutu mares da lele dan tune tuna metu tawais te insuza ane lele dan tune kabile de nabil tune sosu senju de chudon tumba duwe mudwe Tawa Teres, or the Tawures, Tawa Yins, Chuji Ranju Shuda Shezana, Tom Chudi Shibaja, but the Chudi Absheba Ina, and then Chudi Susu Ranju, Chudon Tumba Duemudu, Tatu, Chuji Ranju Shuda Shezana, Tumba Yimesa, Tumba Yomarisata, Matumbala, Shetaba Netata. Registrona and Keba Sigres, but the children Matumba Yimbate and the Shetu Juba in our del Kebares Keba. Keba in this, a tone les, tone the cousin as Karimba. Doina Tone les, Sonboja Sheba Ganji, Sheba
Zusan.
Allah Sheba Ganji, Sheba Oshe Sheba than the Keba is Sheba Sosu Sheba Lago. And then got to Sonji Latuna, got to Susu Bukuchun Dami, Sonji Teba and then I saw the Sonji Sheba Nazing of the Shewa Marda, Bukuchun Dami Sheba Ganji, Sheba Oshe Sheba then Keba Insa, Shesonso, Keba second to what they or three shaking Keba Lago, Shesonso, Chudan Tundana. Chudan Tundana Rukwa the Jadu Suala Chubadan Kedunji Yar Renas Shibi Taji Intisa Tandan Michika Mudo
Lago.
What tell Nani Daba Domasuma?
Okay, so here there's this section is on the examination of one's mind. So after having studied very well and understood the teachings in there related to karma and its results very clearly, then we can examine our minds to see if we are engaging in positive behaviors or we are engaging in negative behaviors. So here we have a quote from a Kadampa master, and it says, "On this occasion of training in karma and its effects, when we compare our actions of body, speech, and mind to what is taught in the teaching, they will not be in conformity." So we will not have, our behaviors are not concordant with what the teachings say to do. In this way we are deficient. Therefore, we are not at all liberated. We are not going to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence. We will not be able to achieve the state of nirvana. We will not be able to get rid of those afflictive obstructions or those obstructions to omniscience. We must see whether we are in conformity or not by comparing ourselves to the law of karma and its effects. When we examine our mind in light of the teachings, we are wise if we sincerely recognize non-conformity or a complete lack of conformity. So it says we are a scholar if we can look at the teachings and then see that we are not behaving concordantly with them. Or that we have a complete lack of concordancy. So this is what we are able to do once we become scholars. Once we have an understanding of these things, then we can see the difference. And then we have a collection of indicative verses. It says, "Those who are childish and know themselves to be childish are wise in this regard." So this word childish was used by the Buddha to refer to ordinary beings. Ordinary beings rely upon the Buddha for their understanding, like children. So the Buddha referred to those ordinary beings without an understanding as the childish. So it's saying those ordinary beings who consider themselves to be wise are the really childish ones. So it's saying those who are childish but consider themselves to be wise, they are called childish. So here, again, this word child is referring to ordinary beings. So once we have... Let's see here. So once we know what is virtue and what is non-virtue in a clear way, then we are able to conduct ourselves in an appropriate way. Dixon.
This way. That only Sheba Ganji, Kesemba, then Sheba Shejudos, Sheba, then the Suju Ganji to Kurun, Keba in San Tamaina, and Sheba is Sheba. Sheba. Sheson base Matana, Chula, Naye, Chula, She, Sonji Son Sos, Chula, Naye. Chula, she, Sonji Songosa. Then the tea the dead happened to Chula, she, Sonjis, Takande, Susu Judan, Chuni Tundu, Taji Jegures, turned out over the 10 was a matter.
So do.
And the Tikurun Duna, Chula, she is. Shantabishita Jiro, she was the Kanza go to Kanza. Kanza de Chudon Tungu Duemudu, Taji Jagures. What the Tamalaman Rebel Dubaina, he turned out what the Yungu.
At the very least, understand what is being said with regard to teachings and examine yourself accordingly. So in the Tibetan, the words are really hard. In the English, it's translated properly. But the Tibetan, the words are really hard. So the Rinpoche is saying the meaning is once you understand the points that are made in the great texts, then use those points that are being made to serve as a mirror, or to use them to understand the way in which you should behave. So that's the point that's being made here, so that you can engage in virtuous activities and abandon non-virtuous activities.
Chula she songs, Chula she songs at the Jerogloima, Jero Sujuba, Lumumbo, Lumumbo, Jerogloima, Chula she songs is what the Putuayan or the Jeroglo the John and the Jula Tawures or the Sonshas. That the Gante Dege, Suzuki Chudan, and Suzuki Sanjudan. Chuni Tuba Duemudu, Taji Jagures, Kazadan, 네 추니 튕도면도 따지지고 서 너한테 땡땡 말에 따울마 고알래 바이나 너한테 보고도 시에서 가도들 언제반을 몸 대시 몸도 못 접어 몸도 돼 시에서 시에서 되게 강자를 고거 강자 레시제 뭐 오민 고들 시에서도 돼 강자를 야 강자가 메게 나다는 지대 출라시 송시 출라시에서 출다 가자니도 퇴고되면도 출 생주다 출이 튼도 퇴마튼 다지지고 사지만도 단다도 어디서.
So here the meaning of this is that the person should see if his or her behavior is in concordance with the Dharma or not. So this Rinpoche is saying that this word she is used for, when we look at different texts, it's used for the word being or kansak, being. So here it's saying, is the being in concordance with the Dharma, with the Dharma? So similar teachings and examine yourself accordingly, the being yourself. So it's very similar. Dixon.
Putuwayan jeraji londe jane chula sheye sonji songo sa de londe jane wa de jula ta go ba songo sa putuwa jeraji londe jane na su gu ju dan chuni tundo da ji je ures.
So here we have Potawa, who's going to quote from the Garland of Birth Stories, the Jerup, which was written by Ashvagosha, Lopum Bawo. So here we find these points that are made about the examination of one's mind. So Aryadeva engaged in a debate with this master Ashvagosha and defeated him. So he wrote the Garland of Birth Stories.
Shanu ni jireyan riba tele rin pe dan tambi chujan teyurin shezon desa peba ranja da chuni pedada dan rawa bana janta Chenmo yoba son so sa janta Chenmo yoba son so 소수가 생주도 추지 등도 다제지도 어때 나주 추 소수 상로 추야 매나 안 추도 더바로 장타시라요 와르스 장타림보레스 송데르스 다 나카탄 사지 바야르스 example 자수 바르 처형 자야르스 소수가 추다 생주이데 Rinpoche Chan was no chul sani ab ko was shanu ni je re riba teyurin pe dans peba dangarusu marbe ngarusu peba je tambi chujan teyurin example de jindo and peba ngarusu dan tambi chuje de tarim Rinpoche Chan chu abre go mares what thing do sa she son de sa Peba ranja dan, peba ngazul kogores, chu pedada dan rawa, jasu da parisarza, tadan rawa ikan zabe jagures, rawa bana janta Chenmo yoba sonso, chinjin dene shansen dayu, tanzi leshi ji chiru nwa shila, sesan tong Pune Lambi Chuzo Delombi Shene Jang, Do Sheba Shigi, tu shiba chi ta na ri la zhu tang la tang wa tar chue dang jiren de song wo xie song so wo de da de ba da ga de chue de ya ba de me na su su dang pe ba su su dang da bi chue ni bo jiang ren bo sha nu ge re dang da bo ja su pa ru de se ren da jiang ren ba chang de ne chue dang tu gu ma res de dang du se da.
Also, Potawa, who quotes this teaching as seen in the Garland of Birth Stories, asserts that you must examine your mind. As it says in the Garland of Birth Stories, from the sky to the earth is a long way. From the distant shore of the ocean to the closest edge is also a long way. From the mountains of the east to the mountains of the west is an even longer way. But from the ordinary person to the sublime teaching is longer yet than that. This verse says that a great gulf exists between us, ordinary people, and the teaching. This verse is a teaching that the gift-bearing Brahmin Subhasita explained to the Bodhisattva Prince Khandra after the prince had offered 1,000 gold coins to him. Moreover, Tulungwa said, if somebody who knew how to examine our mind stream were to do so, that person would soon find something that had gone quite far from the teaching, like sending a ball of thread down a steep incline. So here, ordinary beings who do not examine their minds to see how they are engaging in virtue or non-virtuous activities, are a very long way from the Dharma. So ordinary beings are far from the true Dharma because of this. So the points that are being made here is that one has to examine the mind in order to know if one is behaving in accordance with the Dharma, or if one's behavior is concordant with the Dharma.
안 최다 어때 타레면 차도 자수 바로 저러다 르 바로 저러다 안에 저거 탄라리 버들 나가서 그거는 진 뒤에 거리면 전나지 타레면 차서나 수지 생주 추도 두 말이스.
So a mind that is not examined is a mind not in concordance with the Dharma, and a mind that is not in concordance with the Dharma is a mind that is long way away from the Dharma. Therefore, it's like sending a ball of thread down a steep incline, that it just keeps going and going and going very far. So that's an example of how far away one is from the teaching, from the Dharma, if there is not an examination of the mind taking place.
So
one needs to look to see if one's mind and the Dharma are in concordance all the time. One's always checking this. Then Drupa?
Drupa tatara sane nyeshe do chusa kana gelende to yabu tatara sane san taba ina ane sanlu yabu chomba ina ane deba mago chut kale kale ganu jirota.
So number
nyeshe do chusa.
Number 6 is once you have number 6 category is once you have reflected very well on black actions and their results and white actions and their results and the 10 non-virtuous activities and 10 virtues, then one will turn away from wrongdoing. One will be able to eradicate wrongdoing. So this is number 6, how one gets rid of wrongdoing by way of this understanding. So furthermore, how you turn away from wrongdoing once you have reflected in this way is stated in the chapter of the Truth Speaker.
Deba below less, Deba below do injurata.
Less so.
Jabuchune, Suju Mazijis,
Less so.
Jabuchun, Suju Mazijis,
Majin.
Suma Jose Mazij, Seju
Less
Mazijis,
so.
Ju Samalot and the Sul Zibishirares,
Less so.
Suju Bayina, Sul Bagaki Mare, Sul Zichibishirares, Ju Kula, Sune, Shinto Pong, Tiyuri, and Tison Sundebe, Tiyuri, Tison, Jedag Tison, Suson, Injirota, Sundebe, Ijigula, Suju Masan Monsa, Ijigula, Suju Masansa, Suju Pajan, San Lukuru Suju, San Tanju Maris, Ijigula, Suju Masamo, Suju, but Suju Paja, San Lukuru Suju, San Tanju Maris, Sheson Batarasa. Mago Judan Jian Hanshebi, Kanamato Nala, Kulonki Sambataya, Majua, Donsen, Gundutin, Kumbarcha, Le Montchaos, Le Montchao Theatre, Nishu Maluna, Dungen Mendu to New Good, Can't to Xinjiang, Matayusheros, what the Truba Tebature, Truba Tebature. Yeah.
Furthermore, how do you turn away from wrongdoing once you've reflected in this way is stated in the chapter of the Truth Speaker, which is a sutra. O king, do not kill. So here is stating that for the king to not engage in killing. Life is very dear to all beings. Beings' life is important to them, very, very important to them. Hence, they want to maintain their lives for a long time. So think not of killing even from the depths of your mind. So one should think about the act of abandoning killing at all times and not think even in the very, very back of his or her mind about doing so. So there shouldn't even be the smallest thought of engaging in killing. One should be reflecting on the abandonment of it. To not harm any beings. Apply this attitude of restraint toward the 10 non-virtuous actions as well as the misdeeds previously explained. Do so without even giving rise to the motivating thoughts. Become accustomed to this attitude and use it frequently. If you do not reject wrongdoing this way, you will experience suffering. No matter where you go, you will not be free from it.
What the Truba?
So this is number 6.
Tatane, what the Dumba Chetu Dewata Nawale, the Trinasa, Puzo, Nensu Dansa, Chetu Dewata Nana, Puzu Chusa, Dumba Dumba, Chetu Dewata Nana, Puzu Chus. Tenma, what Dimba, Taka, Deva Mogo Chutumarbe. Deba Mogo Jupana Chala Komakuba ina, Chala Gabajin Komakuro, Chala Komakun Chala Rasuna, and then what the Kusen Gabajin Gomarba. Tedu the water Nayans would never do Jayunguresita, Tedu the water. Then I told you Majile and Kaza Majile, Sujeba. Sujaba Magasa Sujaba ina, cook Jiban as you were. Kusen Neko Kusule, Jiban as you were there, Post Susul Dungan.
Okay, so we'll do.
Then the Louis Marvel Louis Jena, and said the one as you are what the Post Dungan is.
Less so.
Then the Jun Tamatidung, I just got double man. What does want to
So the next category Jayan Sheba deals with is that not aiming for happiness in the short term that causes long-term negativity or suffering. So the point here is that if you look at the various non-virtuous activities, the 10 non-virtues, for instance, if one engaged in killing and really wanted to kill, there could be a feeling of happiness after the completion. Like you finally settled the score, you finally done what you intended to do. But this activity is this short-term happiness, because you'll be happy for that time, but this action will bring about an immense amount of suffering in the future. Likewise, if you engage in sexual misconduct, it might make you happy at that time while you are engaging in the sexual misconduct, but will have very bad results later on. And then stealing. You have an item that you see that you really desire, you really want to have. So then you steal that item, and once it's in your possession, you feel really good that you have that item. That happiness is not the aimed at happiness, because that happiness is accumulated by something. That happiness came about by something that will cause an immense amount of suffering in the future. So the point made here is that don't engage in actions that give you this short-term benefit. Look at their long-term results.
Diba Mogo Jutu Saba ina Negol de ne Doyoban Doate de Yoderota, Doan Hayans, and then Debut maybe the tea, Debut maybe say, and Dungachebu Yungres, Debut maybe say, Cheme Don you de Mendojin to Den Gubi Lena Shah Marie Lasa, and the Diba Mogo Jusana Chedu the one that you there, Pozo. 동해 집에 온 거です. 동해 용어 되지. 아니 가서 미니 치마 보네. 나 동바 치매 거네. 동해 만들지도 용어 봐 용어です. 땡고 발레. 땡고 발레 나네. 샤마리라스. 와테타비 데본 가 용어 돼. 테타비 데바 먹이 주 레도서 사주여 말です. 사나리가 말です. 마리라사. 나메 요유체 카나마토아 메비스 Name news Kanamato maybe Gadilla Lonshubi Lena Shawarides Name Lonshubi se Kanamato maybe Takate Dawatu Sumar Dawatu so ne Raji Kanamato Chibi Kanamato maybe and the Dawa Matan Ladan what to Suchuma in Anna Devi Aboro the Su Jodi Abasa Waris Name news Kanamato maybe Raji Kanamatoa and Chimbatan Raju Karak Jena Sasha Batel Raji Kanamato Marbe Diba Mago Indian Chibi Kanamato said Sanji Chibi Onki Neba or the Raji Kanamati Neba Meba Chibi Kanamatu Neba maybe Negawad the Wayuake what the Jutus do is Longsheba Lenane Shawarites what the Tabi Kanamato maybe and the Walla Soboto Junyu led to Goloyabo Sabures Shawarites.
Therefore, it is not sensible to engage in actions that seem to bring happiness in the short term, yet have effects you must endure with tears covering your face. On the other hand, it is sensible to engage in actions that give you faultless happiness and delight when you experience the ripening of their effects. So when we engage in these 10 non-virtuous actions that may give us some sort of happiness in the short term, they give rise to a large amount of suffering in the future for us. So we shouldn't look at this short-term happiness. We should look at those actions that were presented, that are those actions that are in common and uncommon, and then behave according to whatever category we are in. We have those householder actions that are common, such as abandoning the 10 non-virtuous activities, but then we have the ordained behaviors that are ordained vows that one has to engage in that are not in common. So we have to engage in those kinds of behaviors, such as abandoning the 10 non-virtues and abandoning what is prescribed in the more uncommon things, in order for us to have this long-term happiness that isn't unhappiness that will give rise. It isn't a happiness that the causes of give rise to an immense amount of suffering in the future. So we should be striving for that which is concordant, so we can experience the ripening effects of happiness that we want, instead of the ripening effects of the ripening effects of virtue, which are happiness, instead of the ripening effects of non-virtue, which are suffering. Lots of karma jire.
Oh yeah, that was just mara. Yeah.
That's it. So we will do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayers. And I'll find out about that, the tantric stuff that was presented, because I'm very curious, and I'll be able to, if anybody's interested next week, explain it. And if Rinpoche wants me to retranslate it, I will, because I definitely wasn't certain about that section. Comparing the highest yoga tantra lineages is very, very difficult and not within my skill set at this point.
Do it.
I will. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate the virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche, Gutsu Shapi Denolong, that's a Lamrim Chenmo Kanga Kira.